Hi, Becky Christofferson, violin guru here, and I am recording today in beautiful Albufeira, Portugal, where I've been talking to musicians and music store owners and learning about the music scene here in Portugal. And I needed to rent a violin. I have some Skype lessons this afternoon with my violin guru students, and I did not want to travel with my violin because the airlines can make it difficult. So if you don't have to travel with it, it's better not to. So I went to the music store to rent this violin, and I have to admit I was a little surprised by the condition of the violin, but then I realized if you're ordering a violin online, this is probably the way you're receiving the violin. So I opened the violin, and frankly, it looks like it's broken. I would be very upset if I was a new violin student and I received this violin with the strings loose and no bridge. But the bridge is in here. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show you how to set up your violin. Unwrap the bridge. And it should be slanted in a certain way so that one side is more slanted than the other. So this side is higher than that side. So the lower side goes on the violin towards the thinnest string, the E string. So you want to loosen the strings quite a bit. Don't worry about how loose they get, just loosen them so that there's room to slide the bridge up under the strings. And you'll notice in your F holes there are little notches, and you're going to line the bridge up with the notches. Now as we do this, the bridge is going to move around a bit. Don't worry about it, just kind of keep checking and keep adjusting as we go. So right now I have my bridge straight up and down, lined up with my notches, and there are 4 grooves on top of the bridge, 1 for each string. So I'm going to line that up, and I must say that this bridge does not have great grooves, so I hope yours are better than mine. And bridge to be straight up and down and straight across, but again it's going to move a lot while we do this, so we'll just keep adjusting. So you want to put the violin down on a surface like this table and slowly start to move the pegs. So you're going to start with the top string, the E string, which is the skinny one. The peg is the first one, and turn it until the string is kind of tight. Now go to the peg behind it, which is for the second string, the A string, and do the same thing. If it's bouncing back, push the peg slightly into the peg box, and that will make the peg stick. Now we're going to go to the D string, which is on the other side of the violin. It's the back peg, and you're going to do the same thing. Just tighten it until it's mostly tight, and make sure that you're still lined up on the notches on the bridge. This is a good time to make sure that the bridge is still where you want it, which is directly in front of the fingerboard, lined up with the notches on the F holes. We have 1 more string to go, so we're going to go to the bottom peg on the peg box, and you're just going to turn it until it's tight, and that one you'll probably have to push into the peg box with some enthusiasm. You have to be a little strong with it. You're not going to break it, don't worry. So now adjust your bridge again. The strings should be still rather loose. They don't really sound like anything yet, but at least they're tight enough and you can adjust your bridge. Now I'm going to get my iPhone, which has a tuner app on it. And these are free. Just go to your app store and search Tuner, Tuner, and And there are two options on the tuner. I don't think you can see this, but one looks like a tuning fork and the other looks like a horn. So first we want the tuning fork one, and we want it set to A. Sorry, we want the horn one, and we want it set to A, and it should say 440 underneath the A. And as you listen to the A, pluck your second string. I'm nowhere close. So pluck the second string and slowly turn the peg, go higher and closer to that A. And you'll feel the string get tighter and tighter and resist. So don't be too scared about that, but do turn the peg slowly so you can control it. Because if you turn it too much all at once, that's how you break the string. So then when you get close, you will absolutely have to push that peg in really strong into the peg box. And I'm pretty close, so I'm going to leave it with that because the strings are sympathetic to each other. So as I work on the other strings, the A is going to slip a little bit, so I'm not going to be too picky right now, but I'm really close. So I'm just going to leave it. It takes the strings about a week to stretch out, so you have a good week of heavy tuning ahead of you. So now we're going to change the pitch. We're going to go down. To D, and it should still stay 440 under the D. Now do the same thing. Just keep plucking it and turning it. Push it into the peg box so it stays. So I'm pretty close, so I'm going to leave it, but you hear my A is not right anymore. But that's okay, we're just going to leave it. We're going to go on to G. So use the left button to take it down until it says G. Oh, you can. So take it back up until you get to G. Boom, that's our G. So same thing. Turn it slowly, pluck it constantly, and when you get close, push that peg in. Now we're going to do the E. So change the note on your tuner. Turn it slowly. Get as close as you can, but don't go higher than the note. That's when you start breaking strings. So take your time, get as close as you can, but don't go crazy. Now we're going to check the bridge one more time, and we're going to make it up. See how I'm holding all four strings across, or the bridge across all four strings to move it? And if I'm moving it this way, I'm holding it at the base. Bridge. Okay, so now we're going to do it all over again. Because the A is no longer the A that we found. So we're going to do it again. Get as close as you can. And go through that process using your tuner separately for each string. And it will just, you heard how it back. You just have to do it again and push the peg in. So this one's the worst one. The first time you have to tune a new violin, it can take a long time. So I'm just doing it by ear so we don't have a 2-hour video. And you'll just have to keep going back and forth around all the strings. And they will slip, and it will take a while. Always do the E string last. Start with A and do the E string last because the E string is the most sensitive to the other strings. Now, when you're really close, you can start to use the tuners, the fine tuners, to readjust. So, the tuners at the end of the string, there should be 4, 1 for each. And if you turn the tuner clockwise, the pitch will go up. And if you turn the tuner counterclockwise, the pitch will go down. We're almost there. One of my students told me it took him 2 hours to do this the first time. It made me wish I could get on a plane to Costa Rica and help him. So please be patient. It does take a long time, but it gets better. As the strings stretch out and become accustomed to your environment, they will generally stay in tune, and you can usually just basis using the fine tuners. So that's the violin. And unfortunately, I don't have a shoulder rest to show you because of my rental situation, but I a sponge or a shoulder rest, and we'll go over that in another video soon when I'm stateside again. So then the bow, I have this little rubber bands. You don't need that. If you have that, that was just for shipping to stabilize the bow, so you can get rid of the rubber band. And you turn the little knob. Take the bow out of the plastic, being careful not to touch the bow hair. So the hair should be quite loose, and the stick should be quite curved. So you're going to hold the black part, which is the frog, and you're going to turn the screw away from you, which will tighten the bow and the hair. So you want to be super careful not to over tighten it. So you're going to feel some resistance in the turning of the screw, and you should honor that. So when it starts to feel resistance, stop. You should still have a curve in the bow, and the hair should be tight, but you really shouldn't have the space of more than your pinky between the stick and the hair in the middle. So that's a good way to gauge. If I go any tighter than this, the stick is going to become completely straight, and that's going to warp the wood. So we don't want to do that. So now my bow is tight and it's ready to play, but the hair is probably very slippery. So in your pocket of your violin case, hopefully you have rosin. When you look at the rosin, you'll see a very shiny coat. Now, somewhere along the way, people started to say to take a key and dig into it, and that doesn't really work. That just creates grooves. So what you want to do is you want to be able to access the rosin that's underneath that shiny coat. So you're going to hold it at the frog with your dominant hand, preferably your right hand, because that's going to ultimately be your bowing hand, but today it can be your dominant hand. And you're going to push with that bow hair as hard as you can on the rosin as you go up and down and up and down. And you're just going to do this for a couple minutes. Normally you don't have to do this. This is just because this is the first time that we're rosining. So what we're doing is we have to break through that shiny coat because the rosin, which is tree sap, is underneath that shiny coat. So if you've been doing it nice and hard, up and down, take a second and look at your rosin and see if the shiny coat has disappeared anywhere. It's probably along the edges. It's starting to get a little dusty looking. So that's great. Wherever it looks dusty is where you're actually getting rosin. So because it's a new bow and it doesn't have any rosin on it yet, you're going to go back and you're going to rosin it a bunch, because it takes a lot of rosin in the beginning to make the hair work. And that should do it. So normally, when you're rosining and your rosin cake is working, shiny part, if you just very firmly on the rosin, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe a little extra at the bottom because it gets a little dirty, that's really all you need. And that rosin will get you through about an hour of playing, and then you'll need to reapply rosin. So now the bow should be ready to work. And you can go to the next video and start learning how to play the violin. I'll see you then. Happy practice.